For centuries after the Portuguese conquest of Malacca, Chinese migrants would have to deal with new European powers. These encounters would transform the culture of the entire region. Whoever they were, wherever they came from, new arrivals in the Southern Ocean had to make a home. This was and is a world of ports and merchants, where it is hard to find stability. In the port of Palembang today, a Chinese freighter is being unloaded. Hundreds of local workers swarm onto the ship and get to work, just as their ancestors did. Scenes like this have played out for nearly 1,000 years. How did the Chinese make homes for themselves in this harsh and fluid world? Those first communities disappeared eons ago, but here at Pulau Ketam, we can still get a sense of what the very first migrant communities would have looked like. This floating world was founded by 3 fishermen from Hainan sometime in the 1870s. It's still here, clinging to the edge of the coast. Decades later, when the Japanese attacked China, thousands of fishermen fled here from Fujian and Chaoshan. Soon the numbers of settlers had risen to 20,000 souls. The community is, as it always has been, a floating one. Houses are perched on long wooden stilts. Pulau Ketam is halfway between sea and land. It looks fragile, temporary, yet the place has endured for a long time. Today, the little community houses just 9,000 people. It seems a world away from the desperate lives of its founders. Every family has a plaque on its doors in Chinese, proclaiming where they came from in China. Pulau Ketam is a unique window on a world that long vanished in Southeast Asia. The little maritime village shows what the first Chinese communities might have looked like. In other regions of the Southern Ocean, there are relics of the past and reminders of a more troubled history. This is Manila, the capital of the Philippines. Once it was the site of the biggest Chinatown in Southeast Asia. This community was called Balian.
I think trade started as early as the 10th century, and the Filipinos were buying from the Chinese things like porcelain, pottery, and big jars to store their water. And in turn, the Chinese were getting pearls, silver, and gold from the Philippines. But I think that's a very convenient route for trade with China, because Xiamen is very close to the Philippines. After the Spaniards came, their institutions were there, and so it became easier for the Chinese to migrate to the Philippines.
Today, most Chinese Filipinos live and work in or near Manila, and for them it is hard to avoid reminders of a violent past. The old Spanish fort and its cannons still glower down on the bustling streets of the city. Four centuries ago, this was the scene of carnage and mayhem.
In the case of Manila, we see 4 different massacres in 200 years. And that had a lot to do also with political situation, but also probably because of jealousy, because Spanish people, there were only very few of them in Manila, they felt threatened by so many Chinese around them.
In modern Spain, we can get a sense of Spanish firepower in this museum in Toledo. Spain at this time was a dominant global power. King Philip, who gave his name to the Philippines, had the power and wealth to commission huge armadas that bristled with sophisticated weapons like this smooth-bore cannon.
Se introducía la cantidad exacta de pólvora. A continuación, se introducía la bala esférica y con la baqueta todo se presaba la cobija, se cerraba y en esta posición se realizaba finalmente el disparo.
Across their colonies in the Americas and Asia, the Spanish conquerors embarked on a campaign of violent conversion to their own faith, Roman Catholicism. Many natives converted, and even today, 80% of Filipinos are still Catholics. Conversion took place at the point of a sword or the end of a cannon. Churches like St. Augustine in Manila epitomize the authority of the Roman Church. The Chinese in the Spanish East Indies resisted the Spanish drive to convert. For them, becoming a Christian meant having to abandon age-old customs like polygamy. Antagonism rumbled between the Spanish and the Chinese in Balian, the vibrant Chinese community in the Kingdom of Manila. At the same time, the Chinese emperor was increasingly interested in the region and its wealth.
明代后期整个中国非常缺乏贵金属，缺乏金跟银。尽管从菲律宾输入大量的银元，但是呢，明代后期的这种大规模的商业经济的发展，就急需硬通货。就有这么一个人，告诉朝廷说，菲律宾有座基义山，基义山那些长的树可以下金豆，然后呢，他还跟明朝的官员跑到那个地方。 奉那个朝廷的命，就是考察有没有这个事情。
The expansionist policies of the emperor frightened the Spanish, who began to believe that the Chinese wanted to capture their colonial property in Asia.
西班牙人就觉得那个明朝的朝廷是不是在打这个主意？菲律宾的西班牙人就没有超过2000人，那么他们知道中国明朝是一个庞大无比的帝国，如果明朝要来犯的话，那么他们 如果不先把内患消灭掉，那么一定会有问题。
Trouble was brewing in Manila. In October 1603, during the Mid-Autumn Festival, the Spanish struck against the Chinese. The governor hatched a cunning plot. He demanded that the Chinese in Manila hand over their supplies of iron to the Spanish army, on the pretext that a military campaign was being planned. The Chinese hand over every weapon they possess. It is, of course, a trick. A few weeks later, an army of Spanish, Japanese, and native troops surrounded Balian. Any Chinese who tried to escape was killed. A huge fire blazed out of control inside Balian. Spanish soldiers marched into the Manila hospital and slaughtered Chinese patients. Catastrophe was fast engulfing Balian. 300 Chinese merchants committed suicide by hanging themselves from a beam. The death toll was horrifying.
在南洋，华人遭受的第一次屠杀是1603年，在马尼拉。那么那个时候，马尼拉大概不到3万的华商。 跟华人，那么在这一场西班牙殖民者对华人大屠杀中，将近90%的华商都罹难了。就是说，如果那个时候马尼拉的华人社区大概有3万人，那么被杀的是2万多人，2万5、2万6，那么绝大部分是来自现在的漳州市的龙海县，当时叫海城县。那么在菲律宾呢，从1603年。 到18世纪中叶前后发生了5次大屠杀，那么死难罹难者呢有好几万人。
Today, this gruesome massacre is commemorated by a memorial in Manila. It shows the ill-matched forces of the Chinese and the Spanish armies.
In fact, it had a very negative influence on the economy because with the death of so many Chinese, and also some of them just went back to China, the economy deteriorated. The Chinese and the Spaniards, their relationship can also be characterized by a love-hate relation. The Spanish needed the Chinese in running the economy.
Despite the presence of the memorial, few recall the tragedy of Balian today. But it would not be the last time a Chinese community would be brutally destroyed by a European power.